Hi, Stepsters. I'm Lastya.
And I'm Kritika, and we're your trainers from Future Steps.
Today we'll be learning about evolution, which is the story of change over time. Welcome to our journey through evolution, the fascinating process of change in living things over generations. First explored by Charles Darwin, evolution explains the incredible diversity of life on Earth. In this unit, we'll explore scientific discoveries, conduct experiments, and engage in hands-on activities that reveal how species adapt and change over time.
Okay, so let's get started. What is evolution? Evolution is the gradual change in species over many generations. An important distinction is that individuals don't evolve, only populations do. So, if an evolution is basically a change over time, it occurs as genetic traits. It occurs as genetic traits in a population change across generations. And you could already imagine that's a pretty long time. And then population level process. What that means is that while individual organisms don't evolve during their lifetimes, the genetic makeup, as in, the genetic passing of an entire species can shift as it passes over time. And then we have a canine example. So, for example, we have wolves. Wolves evolved into hundreds of dog breeds through both natural selection and human guided selection of specific traits. That's it. That's crazy, isn't it? It's an insane fact.
Okay, I brought this up earlier, but here we'll go into more detail about Charles Darwin's big adventure. So he was a scientist. And Charles Darwin from 1809 to 1882 was an English naturalist who made observations which are revolutionized our understanding of life on Earth. So what did he do? The voyage. Abroad, the HMS Beagle, which was from 1831 to 1836, Darwin collected specimens and made observations across South America and the Pacific Islands. On the Galapagos Island, Darwin discovered something remarkable. On the different islands, they have different shaped beaks of the different birds that live there, and each suited to the available food source. This observation became crucial evidence for his theory of evolution by natural selection. So, through the observations he made in that different islands in Galapagos, Darwin made notifications and Darwin made like notes that different animals had different beaks as they adapted into the different environment they live in due to the food sources that were available to them.
Yep. And if you're wondering what these numbers are, this is how long he lived. And the HMS Beagle is how long the voyage was. Okay, so how does evolution happen? Natural selection, right? We talked about this earlier in our previous couple videos, and we're talking about it again. So you can guess it's a pretty important detail. Variation. Individuals in a population have different traits, and these different traits are really important as they can get during passed on over time, which can help in evolving a population. Selection. Some traits help survival and reproduction in specific environments. So, when we say some traits help with survival, for example, you know how we, there were different birds that have different beaks. That's because they live in a different environment, and to be able to eat food that in that specific nature, they need to have a different structure. That's why they have a different beak. Because if you have a long beak, you won't be able to, you know, really eat anything that's big or like something that's you could probably eat like small and hard things like nuts and all, but then you would probably need a smaller beak to be able to chew through a bigger food. And then inheritance. Beneficial traits get passed to offspring. Like I talked about earlier, since every population and all those individuals in a population have different traits, those traits can get passed on to their offsprings, and it can keep going to the offsprings of the offsprings, and so on. And then adaptation. Over generations, favorable traits become more common. So, like I said earlier, the if a longer if you if for example you live a bird lives in an environment where you can only find nuts, they might have a longer beak. And if they don't have a longer beak, they probably wouldn't be able to survive since they won't be able to eat that food. That's why when you live in an environment, you have to get used to what's there to eat, what it's like, and just the basic nature. And that's how, you know, people and animals adapt to their specific environment. Now there's a classroom activity that this is something you could do. Sort colored paper moths against different backgrounds. So what we mean by colored paper moths is just cut out a moth shape from different colored papers and then put them against different backgrounds. Which colors are easiest to spot? This models how natural selection favors camouflage individuals. So, for example, my wall is kind of white yellowish. So, if I have a beige colored moth, right, it's probably not going to be as visible as a black colored moth on the same wall. That's why the black colored moths probably aren't going to be able to live as long because, prey and predator and all of that thing we talked about earlier, they could probably get hunted on and eaten because they're easier to spot. So try to do this and then comment down what colors you did and what color background you used and tell us which color was more visible.
Now let's look at adaptation and mutual mutations. Sorry. So adaptations, um, like Kritika told before, they are beneficial traits that help organisms survive in their environment. So, for example, the camel's hump stores fat for desert survival. So the fat helps them get food or water in the desert where there's barely any water present. So the camel's hump allows it to survive through the harsh conditions in the desert. And then we have the cactus pines, which reduce water loss and also help protect the cactus from predators who want water, right? And then we have the Arctic fox fur, which changes color with seasons to camouflage. So isn't that really cool? Like how a animal can like change furs just to be able to like with different seasons, just to be able to blend in with the environment and protect itself from predators. That's really cool for me. And then we have mutations. So mutations are changes in our DNA that create new traits. So these have random changes in genetic code. So your DNA is has a specific genetic code, and whenever you have random changes to it, that's when you have mutations or changes in your DNA. And some can be beneficial, while others can be really harmful, or some can be neutral and just be there without causing any destruction to you or benefit you. And then we have sources of new variation for natural selection. So, like we talked before, we have offspring sometimes only passing down beneficial traits, right? And those are new variations for natural selection so that the offspring that's coming on later in the next generations can survive much longer with these new traits through natural selection. Example could be a giraffe's leg length. So you know a giraffe's neck is like really long, right? So they have been lengthened over generations as taller individuals reached more food. So as giraffes like try, giraffes always eat the trees that are like really tall, right? They eat the leaves from it. So as like time passed by and new generation came in, and over generations, the giraffes, like their necks lengthened, and that was the new variation they um passed down to their offsprings, so that the offsprings can have better like grip of like eating the food from the trees and easier, much easier, right? So that they can get the food they need really easier and efficiently.
Mhm. It does sound weird to think about a giraffe's neck growing, but it is true. And it did happen over a really long time. So it didn't just, quickly just grow. But that would be funny if that did happen. Just letting you know that's never gonna happen. Probably. Okay, so to my favorite part, fossil evidence, clues from the past. We've all heard about fossils and we've all probably seen pictures of them, right? But now we're gonna learn how these fossils, just you aren't thinking that fossils just come out of nowhere, right? So let's see how they are formed. So when organisms die, hard parts like their bones can be preserved in sediment and slowly turn into stone. And that is really cool because you would probably think, oh, they should just decompose and go back into nature. But sometimes they can turn into fossils because of being preserved in these really special sediments. And their discovery is paleontologists. They excavate and study fossils to understand ancient life forms. And when you analyze these fossils, they can show patterns of species appear and disappearing over millions of years. So, we don't see dinosaurs anymore, but there are fossils that could show evidence of the existence of dinosaurs. That is how we know that, they did exist at some point. And that is because of fossils, because, you know, these guys, they found a couple fossils. And when you look at them, they don't look like things that we see in our daily life. Like, they don't look like fishes or dogs or anything like that. But instead, they look a little different. And that is how we know that, oh, the species disappeared. And then you can also see how some of these species can end up reappearing sometimes or be kind of in a really small amount such that we never see them around. And then interpretation. Transitional fossils like whale ancestors with legs, can you believe that? Whales had legs. Provide evidence of evolutionary change. So, whales used to have legs, and I know that's crazy because what would a whale with legs look like, right? But whales did have legs, and now they don't because, they don't need legs anymore. So these these legs, they kind of just, it's not that they just, poofed off and disappeared, but they slowly moved into the body, making the body a different kind of thing so that they can speed through water and not because they don't really need legs, and you really only find whales in water, so that is one reason why they are now without legs. And this is what happens for many other types of animals too. So now let's talk about a mini experiment. Make your own fossils using clay, plaster, and shells or leaves. That sounds fun, doesn't it? So press objects into clay, remove them, then pour plaster to create fossil-like impressions. And that is how fossils are like. So think about the clay as like a rock or stone, and then inside that rock there were sediments that covered the bones and turned them into whatever. When you pour plaster and it comes out, that thing that comes out is what you could imagine as the bone inside sediments. And obviously, if you break it open, you probably aren't going to see like a bone. It's definitely going to look a lot different. And I'm telling you, if you ever find a fossil, do not break it. It is really it is really a masterpiece.
So now we can start comparing different structures. We have the homologous and the analogous of structures. The homologous structures are similar structures with different functions that have evolved from a common ancestor. So the same bones that form a human arm are also forming a whale's flipper and a bat's wing too. But the difference is that they are used for different functions, right? For a human's arm, we use it for picking up stuff or anything, and a bat's wing, it's used for flying. Then we have the analogous structures. These are different structures with similar functions that have evolved independently. So the bird wings and the butterfly wings both enable flight but have evolved separately. Now, another challenge you can do is a quick drawing challenge. So design your own arm structure from an imaginary creature. What environment does it live in? How does the structure help it survive? Make sure to comment down below about your findings and also, if possible, answer the questions we gave you here in the challenge.
Hmm. Okay, evolution in action, modern day examples. Antibiotic resistance. When bacteria are exposed in antibiotics, some naturally some naturally resistant individuals survive and reproduce. This leads to populations of bacteria that can withstand our medicines. That is kind of cool, isn't it? Think about it. Antibiotics are made to defeat bacteria, but there could be some that could survive and reproduce and make different types of bacteria. And that is how our main viruses and all spread too, because some of them end up not not dying because of our vaccines, and then they end up evolving such that those vaccines can do nothing to them anymore. And that is really dangerous for us humans. That is why all of these things, all of these experiments are usually done in labs. And if leaked, it could cause mishaps like COVID-19 that happened a couple of years ago. And then, oh, French beak evolution. We've been talking about beaks so much this entire video. Here's another example. Scientists observed Galapagos finch beaks changing size and shape after drought periods changed available food sources. So evolution is happening in real life too, which is insane, isn't it? Because think about it, they observed that these beaks change their sizes and their shapes depending on what food was available for them to eat. Now try this. Simulate beak selection using different tools. So maybe get some tweezers, some chopsticks, or some tongs, or you could get all three of them, and then try to pick up various foods. And what we mean by foods is not like actual foods, but try to get marbles, beans, rice, and like maybe some like tiny rocks. And then look at which beak works best for each food type. And comment down below which tool was able to pick up what food type. So if you use tweezers, was it able to pick up marbles? Comment down below. And that is how beaks work too. If when you notice in this experiment, you're going to notice a few of these things cannot pick up the food. And that is why some of these types of beaks are for animals that live in a different habitat.
Let's look at an experiment now. So this is a model for natural selection. It's a natural selection simulation. The materials you would need are colored beads, red, blue, green, and yellow, or any other different colors. Just try to get four different colors. You need sand or gravel, and then we have a substrate, and then we have tweezers. You need a timer and data collection sheet, or just a paper to collect your data. Now, these are the procedures you need to follow in order to make this experiment really engaging. And this experiment is really fun. So let's get into it. So scatter equal numbers of each colored bead on sand or gravel, right? And then act as predators and pick up beats for 30 seconds. So just pick up random beats for 30 seconds. After you put a timer for 30 seconds, just pick up as many like beats you want. Don't pick up everything, of course, but like leave some out and then pick as much as you can. And then count the remaining beats by color and note them down into your data collection sheet. Then reproduce. So after the 30 minutes and after taking down everything like the data, then reproduce, meaning that the remaining beats, you need to double them. So if there was like three beats, add six beats. So make them six now. And let's say there are three red and maybe like two blue, then make it six red and four blue now. And then repeat this for 3 to 4 times. So that means like generations basically. And then, you can comment down below the results you got, like how many different beads you have at the end, and what's the actual, like, result of all of this, right? Maybe there's more like red beads, or maybe there's more green beads, something like that. Okay. And the most visible beads will be caught first. So while camouflage beads survive to reproduce, over generations, the population shifts towards colors that blend with the environment. So this is natural selection in place. So you know how the most visible beads, like let's say your favorite color is red, right? Then you would want to pick many of the reds, right? Because it's your favorite color, and maybe if you have like red beads and then you placed all the beads on a red paper, that means the red won't be seen, but the others will be seen. So you would likely like pick those because the red are kind of like camouflaged, right? So that means in real life too, if a bead or like an animal is camouflaged into like the environment it lives in, then it will be safe from predators that like likely look for it to eat it, while the others which like are odd one out from the like environment, like maybe blue beads on a red paper, those ones they will be out because the predators can look at them, they can spot them, and of course they are the prey, so they will definitely catch them. So this is how natural selection takes place in real life, and that through this experiment you'll learn more about like natural selection and how it actually occurs.
Mm-hmm. And also remember that when you're picking up the beads, you have to pick them up with tweezers and not your fingers because that would be too easy. And another thing is think about the fact that you have like let's say you have five red beads and five green beads in the beginning, and you put them in like grass. Grass is green, so obviously the green beads are gonna be harder to find. So you're probably gonna pick up the red beads first. And if this happens and you have to keep doubling, then there are gonna be more green beads, and by the end they're only gonna be green. And that's one simpler way you could think about it. But the way Lassia explained it is really good too. Do try this, it's really fun. Okay, so why does evolution matter? Evolution explains the incredible diversity of life on our planet and continues to shape organisms today as environments change. Now, that didn't quite explain why it matters, did it? So, we're going to talk about health and medicine. So, understanding evolution helps us combat antibiotic resistance and develop new medicines. So, for example, like we talked about the bacteria thing, if we are able to understand how bacteria evolves, it's going to be easier for scientists to make antibiotics to resist those bacteria. And then they can come up with new medicines for any bacteria, viruses, or just any issue. And then conservation, knowledge of how species adapt, helps us protect endangered species facing environmental changes. So, for example, if our environment changes really quickly, and let's say there are only 5 elephants left, then we then if we have like 5 elephants left, then we're probably gonna have to, you know, conserve them, as in keep them in a place where they can survive instead of the broad nature, because they're they're gonna be under endangered species where they could probably go extinct any moment. And then our agriculture, evolutionary principles guide crop development and pest management strategies. So if you can observe evolution, you can also make a lot of agricultural developments that can be helpful for our society. Now we have our final challenge of the day. Design your own creature adapted to an alien world. Choose an extreme environment like an ice planet, underwater, or high gravity. Oh, high gravity would be fun. And sketch a creature with at least 3 adaptations that would help it survive there. So, I'm pretty sure you can do this, and I would really love to see your creatures. So, you could definitely email us a picture, or, just write or just describe it in our comments. Also, do tell us what environment you chose if you're gonna tell us in the comments. And then that's all we have for you today. So thank you so much for watching. Comment down any questions, concerns, video requests, or just any comments. And do try to answer the questions we have almost on each slide, because they're pretty useful. And if you do these many times, you're probably gonna get used to it and understand this more and more. So we'll hope to see some of you guys' answers down in the comment section. And that's all we have for you today. Evolution is indeed fun. So see you in our next video, Stepsters. Bye!
Bye, Stepsters.